Welcome back to He's a Giant, a pod about the NFL Combine. I'm your host, Sal, here with my co-host, Monty. What's going on, man?
What's going on, man? It's really the start of draft season. I feel like this is where it really starts to take off. We're going to get all these combine numbers and all that type of stuff and get these official measurements that, really start to make this thing fun. So I'm excited. Tomorrow, D-line and linebackers.
Yes, the schedule is out. Position groups start going into their individual drills tomorrow. We wanted to do this episode to just do our kind of annual combine preview with the twist on it. I think you guys will enjoy this one. And this one, I'm going to give all credit to Monty because he absolutely put in the work on this one. It's a very cool, it's an analytics tool that Monty actually developed, using various techniques, but it's really fascinating how he created this, and we're gonna show you guys how this works. So we're gonna talk a little Giants football. We're gonna talk a little combine. Giants, there's not a whole heck of a lot going on. There are some rumors swirling, Monty, about like what to do with free agents now that Joe Schoen has spoken and John Harbaugh spoke at the podium at the combine. Now we're beginning to hear rumblings of Don Aponte meeting with agents for free agents. You're beginning to hear little rumblings of who the Giants are talking to, what John Harbaugh thinks of their own free agents. From whatever information we've gotten so far, what are your thoughts on how this free agency period is likely to shape out?
We haven't heard a whole lot. More and more is going to come out because, that's combine week. Everybody's in the same place. Everyone gets drinking, spilling information. Happens every year. I think some things we kind of already knew. I mean, it sounds like Wandale Robinson's going to be expensive, so we'll see if he's back here. Sounds like the Giants are interested in Tyler Linderbaum. That keeps getting floated around.
Also expensive.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like they're interested in bringing back their top free agents, but obviously it's going to be at their price. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, John Harbaugh said the exact right thing when they asked him about his impending free agents, especially the big three. And he said, I watched all of them. I'd like all of them to be here. I just didn't focus on anybody, just kind of generically said, they're all good players. I'd like them to be on the Giants and left it at that. I think there's a lot to be ascertained about how this is going to go forward. I mean, we've been talking about things like the cap and what they can do with it. My stance has been consistently, we need to clear as much space as possible and be super aggressive in free agency right now to build this roster up for Jackson Dart and John Harbaugh. And I think we have it's like a perfect, it's a weird thing that doesn't happen to us a lot. It's like a perfect storm where we've got that young quarterback who looks like he's got the goods going into his second year. We actually have some really good core pieces here, which is, I believe, why John Harbaugh came here at the most important positions: quarterback, wide receiver 1, left tackle, edge rushers, pass rushing D linemen. The hard stuff is done, but there's so much missing around those guys on the roster, and the Giants need to fix that stuff. The good news is it's actually pretty easy to fix the filler positions, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's just changing bodies out and not at the price point of those other spots that we have locked up. So I just think we're going to have a big offseason in terms of free agency. And it's hard for me to even focus on the draft right now. I'm really more focused on like what's going to happen in free agency and how we're going to approach this financially and who we're going to get. But you know how I think. We got our quarterback. We should put our team in position to compete and then be able to just walk on the draft and go BPA, right? Just create a board and run with it.
I agree with you. And I'll be honest, I know I normally do, but I don't look at this free agency like, oh, if we get this guy, it doesn't mean we can get this guy. To me, there's plenty of money you can move around. There's a lot we can do to open up cap. And if you want a guy, if you think a guy can be part of your future and you think he'd be a good addition to the team, go get him. And if you feel like you need a position and there's happens to be a big free agent, but you don't love him, don't get him. Like, you don't have to do it all this free agency, but if you see multiple guys you'd like and you want to bring them in, you have a chance to bring them in at the price you want them for, then make the money work and bring them in. It's not that hard. It really isn't. Getting one guy should not preclude you from getting another guy. But at the same time, striking out on one guy shouldn't panic and bring in a guy for big money just because you missed out on that guy.
Yeah, in fact, and that the approach you're talking about is, that's kind of been the Joe Schoen MO, over the last few years in free agency, where he's either gone directly to the kind of the guys who you're like, why did we sign that guy? And why did we sign him on day one of free agency? He's missed out on the guys he wanted, and then he'd like immediately put money into somebody else, and that actually predates Joe Schoen. That was a Dave Gettleman thing, Jerry Reese thing. I don't want to see
Jonathan Stewart to start fucking Patrick Omame. Let's start our free agencies.
You can't sign every big name free agent, but if you identify one or two guys that you want to go after them. And if you don't get them, typically the right thing to do is not go to plan B, which is the next most expensive guys. Actually take a step back, see who gets cut, right? See who that next wave of people are, because the whole idea is if you want to pay top dollar for somebody is because you think there's daylight between that person and the rest of the field. Don't settle for the top of the rest of the field if you don't get that one guy. It's okay not to get him, but just be patient with it, But either way, I do think they're going to be aggressive about filling out the roster. So let's talk about our guys real quick. You mentioned Wandale. I heard who was it? I think it was Rapshi talking to Schmelk, and saying, yeah, Wandale's going to make a lot of money. He's and he the reason he was saying it obviously is he was like, well, you've got George Pickens and you got Alec Pierce who are talking about making around 30 million, and Wandale's highly productive, just a really, really productive player, and he's hitting free agency and he's earned himself the payday, so he's probably going to get a good amount of money. And it just got me thinking about how flawed our roster construction and how our offense was the last few years, where essentially the ball was being forced to Wandale for 2 years. Just the short intermediate stuff over and over again for under Daniel Jones in 2024, and just using him as that check down target over and over again that just inflated his production. And I think he's a very good player. But then this year, he had a good year. He played really well, and I think he earned a lot of respect from people. But a lot of his production, if you want to be fair about it, a lot of it was when he got to play wide receiver one. When Malik Neighbors went down, and he cooked a couple of teams and his numbers went up. And look, a lot of guys do that, but the Giants are right now in free agency. If they wanted to retain Wandale Robinson, they're victims of their own stupid approach to building this offense over the years, where it was all just Brian Dable forcing the ball to these small slot receivers over and over and over again, and hyperinflating them. And now you're dealing with that guy saying, I'm a 1,000-yard receiver. I want $20-something million a year. I'd like Wandale back, but I mean, do you want to give Wandale Robinson $20 million a year?
No, I don't. No. Obviously the guaranteed money is what matters. You could do a lot of funny money. It could not actually be that, but at the end of the day, no, I don't want to pay Wandale Robinson $20 million a year. I would probably be comfortable in that 16 to 18 range.
Yeah. I mean, so we'll see, right? I think what Rappaport is kind of hinting at is that it's going to be north of that. There's going to be a market because there's not a lot of guys who are good receivers who do have production to back up their claim that they're good out there. So there's that. Cor'dale Flott is interesting. I don't think anybody has a good feel for what he's going to get. And I think the more I'm listening to the national NFL guys talk about him and just see consensus view on him, the only person I've heard say that I think that guy's going to make more money than people realize is Dan Jeremiah. And he mentioned it. Yeah, he said it a week ago on his pod on Move the Sticks. He did say, I think that guy's going to get a little bit more than people realize, because he's that prototypical, young cornerback that's emerging and all the stuff we talk about. But again, what do people think his baseline would have been? And what does getting more than that mean, right? I have a feeling that the consensus view is Cor'dale Flott's a $7-8 million a year cornerback. And I think it's possible that when Jeremiah is saying, I think he's going to get more than that, and then you look at what the Athletic put out there, where they had him at $7 or $8 million a year. Maybe people are thinking, oh, he's going to get a 3-year, $35 million deal, and that they think is huge money for Cor'dale Flott. But would you give Cor'dale Flott, $12 million a year?
Yeah. And I mean, to your point, it could even be like 13 is surprising, which I think
Right,
is a fair
but in
enough,
that range.
yeah, like a comparison I brought up, which I think a guy to look at is like a Kyler Gordon. Kyler Gordon's been was a good number 2 for the Bears, and they signed him to about like 12 and a half. I can see him being somewhere in the Kyler Gordon range.
It's actually a good comp. They were in the same draft class, if I recall.
Yep. I believe so.
Yeah, they were both in the 22 class. Gordon was a second round pick.
Yeah.
Obviously Wandale was a third round pick, but yeah, I mean, both, Gordon has played more, but still, nickel corners who have played both nickel and outside, and good players, but not necessarily stars. So that's interesting, right? So we got to see where his market is. I mean, I'm getting the impression that I don't just listening to what these guys are saying. I don't know if there's a team out there that's going to push him above 16, 17, 18 million a year. It's possible. I'm not sure that's out there though, so it's curious. And that's one worth watching because he's good. And then it brings us to Jermaine Eluemunor, who Rad says here, and he's right, that he said the most likely signing at this point for the Giants appears to be Jermaine Eluemunor, which is really interesting. That's a twist from a few weeks ago when it seemed like he was gone. And I think we assumed that because the market was going to be strong for tackles, we thought he might be the best tackle on the market. And then you had Carmen Brasolo joining Brian Dable in Tennessee. Well, a few things have changed. Braden Smith is going to hit free agency from the Colts, who's a comparable right tackle, right? Trent Williams is going to hit free. If the 49ers can't figure out a way to renegotiate a deal with Williams, he's going to be cut, which is insane. Cutting a franchise left tackle, but they can't afford his cap hit. So he's possibly going to be on the market. By the way, he's a bear. He's such a bear.
I said a Raider, but to be fair, somebody would have to go to right tackle. I didn't really think of it.
The Bears have their right tackle. They need a left tackle. The Bears are trying to win a Super Bowl. If you're Trent Williams, where are you going, man? You're going right to Chicago. But anyway, so maybe Eluemunor's market. Oh, and maybe Tennessee. Tennessee, you heard Brian Dable say they fully expect their right tackle to stay their right tackle. Old buddy from Alabama. So if all of that is true, maybe the market that Jermaine Eluemunor thought he was going to have is drying up a little bit, which takes him from a $20+ million a year tackle potentially down to what you've said, $14-15 million a year kind of range. So there's a world, Monty, where we lose Wandale because the market's hot for him, but Cor'dale Flott could be had for 3 years, $36 million or something like that, and Jermaine Eluemunor could be had for 3 years, $45 million. Are you signing those two at those price points?
Yeah, and I'm perfectly happy if that's how it comes out with our guys. Look, it sucks losing Wandale in that case, but you can't keep everybody, and you re-sign 2 of your 3 priority free agents. And to me, Jermaine Eluemunor he's the more important piece to Jackson Dart's development than Wandale Robinson, although Wandale Robinson obviously is important too.
Yeah. So that's our free agents, right? That's our big guys. I mean, it's going to shake out interestingly. This is what happens when guys hit the market, right? You just never know. Variance kicks in, and then there's you as the team and the players themselves are subject to the market. The market could be hot for them, and all of a sudden that price is way higher than you thought it could have been. The market may not be, and then all of a sudden the price is way lower than they thought it would have been. So we're going to see how this shakes out. But I think if these guys are not getting the top dollar amounts that we think that they could potentially get, the odds go up substantially that they just stay here with the Giants, where they're comfortable, where they probably have homes. I know Eluemunor has a family. The odds go up significantly that you could keep these guys. So let's see how that shakes out. The other guys, just real quick before we go to the combine stuff, worth mentioning are other free agents because you got to fill a roster out. And how many of these guys are you willing to keep? Daniel Bellinger, would you keep him? Let's think. What do you think he's worth out there? $4 million a year?
Probably. I could see him getting that. I don't know,
3, 4.
To me, he's a vet minimum guy. I like Daniel Bellinger, but if somebody wants to pay him, then I'll get somebody else as a vet minimum.
Okay.
Like
Dane Belton.
Vet minimum. I wouldn't guarantee him anything.
Fair enough. Micah McFadden.
I'd give Micah McFadden a little bit of money. I'd give him around $4 or $5 million.
You think he would even get 4 or 5 million on the market?
I honestly think so because he's coming off an injury. But to me, that's what he's worth as a player.
I think he's the guy that's most interesting to keep, and followed by Bellinger. And the thing about McFadden is he was playing well going towards the end of 2024. He was a player we were all excited about coming into the 25 season. I think most of us thought he was going to be our best linebacker this year. And then he, has a Lisfranc injury in the second series of the year. I was at that game in DC. And we haven't seen him since. And, let's just assume for a second he's healing okay from the Lisfranc, which, you never know. But let's assume he is. Does the NFL know what he is? You know what I mean? Like, does anybody really know what he is? Like, is anybody out there like clamoring to get McFadden? To me, he seems like a guy that's competing for a roster spot.
Yeah,
on most teams.
A lot of linebackers out there.
Yeah, so I actually would like to get him back here, and if you want to throw an extra $1 million at him or something, I'm fine with it.
Here's a question for you: would you rather pay Daniel Bellinger, or would you rather pay Charlie Kohler?
It's a good question. You're talking about tight end 2. Are they getting paid the same amount of money?
Yeah, same amount. Let's say $5 million.
Yeah, I think I'm going with Charlie Kohler.
He's the better blocker.
That's it, right? Like what tight end 2, you want him to have some receiving chops, but you need him to be a good blocker. Like it's not negotiable, right?
And Bellinger is a good
has
receiver, but he doesn't bring anything dynamic.
He's not a yak guy, as you bring up all the time, like with tight ends.
Although he had that one little shuffle pass. That was nice.
Yeah, if he does that over and over again, he's going to become freaking George Kittle. But, yeah, I was waiting for that for 4 years. Of course, he does it in like in his last game as a Giant on a rookie deal,
Something like that.
Unreal. But yeah, that was against the Cowboys, wasn't it? So
right.
Yeah, so he typically hasn't brought a lot of yak. You drafted Fedoni, who kind of does the same thing Bellinger does. Kohler, at least, I think, is a very sound blocker. He also is, I presume, a Harbaugh guy. Right, he brings some of that institutional knowledge of what the Ravens were, and I remember him at Iowa, and he was a pretty good receiver.
Yeah,
he was a pretty good receiver, and I just don't think they used him like that on the Ravens because he's sitting behind Isaiah Likely, he's sitting behind Mark Andrews. There are other guys who are going to get targets on that team, and he was used primarily as a blocker. I think there's more there as a receiver for him. So I would actually, if I'm getting the same price, I probably would bet on Kohler.
Agreed. Yeah, that's kind of where I am.
Yeah. All right. So interesting stuff. We're going to see how it shakes out. I think a lot of that stuff's going to happen at the combine. We're going to hear about these things about players who get re-signed, not signed, who the Giants are showing interest in. But free agency is where this all starts. And then it should flow naturally into the draft, which we'll get into now. So the combine starts, dude. The NFL combine, everybody's excited about the drills. We're going to talk about the drills, but the real reason the NFL combine is important has nothing to do with the athletic drills. It is 100% about the medicals. It's about everybody coming to one place and getting their physicals, their MRIs, their x-rays, all of their medical evaluation done in one centralized location for all NFL teams to see. And obviously for the opportunity for teams to meet with these players and interview them and get to know them personally. But it's primarily a medicals thing. And I was discussing this the other day in the space. The reason Indianapolis is it's going to be so hard to move off of that for the combine is because they have an infrastructure for the medicals that I think is going to be very hard to recreate. Brugler was talking about this on the Athletic Pod, Athletic Football Show. And he said, yeah, you could move it somewhere else, but good luck finding a place that has 30 MRI machines, and I'm thinking 30. I mean, I know that if you don't have context of how many that is, like most hospitals, like big hospitals, if you like the big university hospitals in your area, they might have like 4 or 5 MRIs, like at the most. I looked it up yesterday. NYU healthcare system, not NYU Langone, the one hospital, in Murray Hill in Manhattan, but their entire regional system, all of their outpatient, inpatient, other hospitals, everything combined has 50 MRI machines. And the NFL Combine has 30.
Yeah.
30. They do somewhere between 300 and 600 MRIs in the few days they're there. And typical MRIs take about 30 minutes to do. So just think about the volume of that. They have medical staff that, and typically these are top-notch radiologists. They do it through the University of Indiana, but I'm pretty sure like their radiologists would not have the capacity to read all these films. So I'm pretty sure the NFL brings in like top-tier radiologists from around the world who they pay, license, and get credentialed temporarily at the University of Indiana and all the stuff that comes with credentialing to basically sit to read these films and read these MRIs for teams and on these players. I mean, that infrastructure, I can't think of any other place in healthcare where you have that kind of an infrastructure. Like, it's insane what they do for the Combine. So the Combine's about the medicals and about meeting with teams. So we're going to learn a lot about that stuff over time, right? Like, you're going to hear some guys on the top 50, top 100 list just suddenly fall off. And you're like, hey, where did that guy go? And you're going to eventually hear like, oh yeah, like his medicals are not good. Like that happens every year.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And it's just a good location for a lot of reasons. You have, it's very central to the United States. It's, it's a lot of convention centers and things like that. Everything's connected. It's just an overall good place to have this.
17 steakhouses within like a couple of square miles around Lucas Oil Stadium. Insane. A lot of infrastructure.
Yeah.
Anyway, so other than that, obviously the stuff we watch for are the drills. And that's what we're talking about today. So every position group has their own drills, the standard drills, that everybody kind of does, things like running the 40, jumping the vertical, the broad jump, the short shuttle, the 3-cone. Everybody gets standardized measurements of their arm length and their hand size, their height, their weight, all that stuff happens. And we've done episodes here before, Monty, where we've talked about like the predictive testing and metrics that predict NFL success from the Combine by position group. And we've cited a couple of sources. One of the bigger ones was a study done by actually PFF, where they looked at a ton of data using their own internal WAR, wins above replacement. And they did it by position. And I have that up. We've done it before. I don't need to go into all of it. But why don't you take it from here? Because Monty's got a treat for you guys. He has developed his own analytics tool to predict success at the NFL level based on certain Combine metrics and measurements. So why don't you just take it from here, and I'm going to listen like everybody else.
Sure. So this is something I kind of always wanted to do. It's basically the idea for me is I always kind of mess around in mock draftable, and I'll try to like look at certain ranges. I've talked about in doing that, I found like the offensive line thing where all under a 4.89, you see a lot of success. And essentially I wanted a place to do that more easily and kind of analyze data and do this at a higher level. Also be able to create NFL comps and things like that way. I've tried to do it in the past. Luckily nowadays you have AI and things like that to help you finish writing the code on this. And, so I was able to put it all together, and I finally kind of got it. And I've gotten a lot of useful information out of it. I mean, to start with, this is basically what it is at base level. If you look, I have all the positions. I'm going to see if I can zoom in a little bit, but I have all the positions here that are in the overall. I would go through 22. I had 2020, 22 in the guide I have, and it has all the Combine drills, but also we have some other things in there like approximate value, which is from Pro Football Reference, started season. So it's just like how many seasons these guys have started, if they beat their draft position as far as their expected approximate value, and things like that. And so I'm using that along with like Pro Bowls, All Pros, things along those lines to say how successful what were these guys. And basically I have it spitting out scores to say how successful were you to the baseline. So I'll do a base example for you guys here. We'll do the one we've always talked about with the offensive line. So if I go and I click center, guard, and tackle. So we've talked about how if you're under 4.89, that's been really successful. long term. So I'll go ahead and do a max of 489 in the 40. And I will go ahead and oops. Where'd it go? Hang on one second. Lose it. 1 second, guys. Sorry, I don't know what happens. Let me refresh it. Do you have that? Do you have it open on your side, Sal?
Yeah, you want me to close it?
Yeah, close it just in case that's messing with it.
All right, I'm out.
All right. All right, so run it. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll just click the file again. We're gonna upload this and let's try this again. So basically now it opens it up and I'll click out of this. I'm gonna go center, guard, and tackle. And I'll kind of show you guys what it spits out. So essentially right now it's gonna set a baseline is what it's gonna compare it against. So it's going to take as if I just clicked analyze right here and I didn't set any other parameters. That's the baseline now that we're going to compare success to. So now we're just going to change one thing. We're going to say 40-yard dash, 4.89 seconds or better for offensive linemen. We're going to apply filters and analyze. So then it spits out this. And so it gives you approximate value. It gives you the filtered mean over a career and the filtered and the median over the career approximate value, which is up, as you can see, 19.6 and 26 from the baseline. So significant jump with just one change there.
These are percentages, right?
No, that's like the approximate value number. So over the career, how much approximate value you had. So like, for example, right here, you can see some of these players and what approximate value they had. So for example,
what is that? What does that mean, the approximate value?
Approximate value is just a way that Pro Football Reference sets your value on the season. So if you go and you click any player, and basically every single stat, you can see an AV at the end, and they basically have a formula to set how valuable you were to the team. A really valuable season, like a Pro Bowl, like top or like All Pro top line would be like 10 and over. But the way I have it set up in this is a solid starter has 30 plus over their career, and a star is 60 plus over their career. So that's for reference there. So the difference is almost a solid starter for as far from the median. The starts go up about 2.7 per season with a mean of 5.2. The verse expected goes up 11.1. So that's just based off of draft position and whatnot. And the average annual value per year goes up 2. So goes up from 2.84 to 4.8. And then, so here what we can see is if you look at the success rates here, these are the percentages. So basically it's saying 47.4% of these players make the Pro Bowl. That's up 36.3%. 21.1% of these players are all pros. That's up 16.8%. 52.6% are solid starters, which is up 26.5%. And then a star, which is an approximate value of over 60, is 26.3, which is up 20.5. And beat draft expectations is 52.6. So, we won't go over all those numbers every single time. We'll show them on the screen for you watching, and I'll kind of call out the differences. But it also spits out the top 10 most successful people that are fitting here. So you can see Jason Kelsey, Trent Williams, Joe Staley, Lane Johnson, Richie Incognito, Chris Trester, Taron Armstead, Taylor Lewan, Brian O'Neill, Tristan Wirfs. Like very, very, very successful players. And with the bottom is Tristan Wirfs. So it's something we've called out, something that's very successful. And that is just one filter, just filtering one thing. So whereas what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys. So what I did next to take the next step is I had, and we're not going to go through all of how it's done because I already did it. I already have the formula spit out. Basically, I had this thing run another formula, and the formula essentially took all of the filters and said, like, look for a certain range where it's better or worse than this number, and then another one combined with two filters, and tell me what is the most successful predictor of, like, what's the best predictor of success just using this. And they did that for every single position. So I was going to go through that with you guys too, and we can see how that goes. Do you have any questions so far, Sal?
No. Well, I want to stop for a second because it's
Yep.
very technical, and I want to make sure that everybody who's viewing is getting what they can out of it. So if anybody has questions, put it in the chat right now. I'll do my best to translate Monty's gibberish to you guys. For anybody who plays fantasy like baseball or looks at metrics like advanced stats in baseball, the WAR metric, wins above replacement, for example, is a standard metric to just calculate a person's value versus replacement, right? Like an average player of that position or replacement level player, how much better are you than them, right? It's just a way to gauge like what value you bring, how many more wins do you add over the course of a season versus that average guy. And the metric you're using is essentially the football equivalent of that, like roughly.
Yes.
And
correct.
so all we're saying is it's like the annual value you offer above like the average player or a replacement level player. How much better are you than that guy? And what I think important, what you were saying for offensive linemen is like, if you're averaging, like 10 above the average, like that's a superstar essentially, right?
Yeah.
In a year. And what you found from this one metric, this 4.89 40 time, which not everybody knows this probably, but we've discussed this before here a lot. Offensive linemen who run under 4.89 or better, historically, you just rattled off a lot of the names. They're not just good. A lot of them are Hall of Famers. It's one of the most freaky predictors of NFL success as an offensive tackle or lineman or interior lineman, but like just somebody who can run a 4.89 or fast. And I guess if you think about it calmly, you just have a freak athlete at that size, right? A freak athlete is more likely at that size to be a Hall of Fame level player. And so it's correlating, right? Like we know that already from a historical understanding of that metric, at least retrospectively, we know it. And then you look at this data and it's saying, yeah, you know what? Here's what it actually means. These people are worth they're like 30 times more likely to be like a Pro Bowler or an All Pro. And so that metric works. And that's all we're doing is saying, well, how can we use certain metrics to determine, or how do we identify the metrics from testing that figure out who's going to be more likely to be successful at the NFL level using this data? And what it's doing is it's basically going back and looking at the history of NFL testing, essentially, at the combine. And it's then analyzing it against their careers. And it's crunching that data, essentially, right? And that's what you're doing with this. So, Monty called me about this, and he was all excited about it. And I was trying to listen to him in the middle of the day, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then I asked questions to him. I was like, well, we know that you already know the O-line number. Like, I don't need your tool to tell me that, right?
Yeah.
How do I know to believe any other metric for any other position? And since you used AI to generate this, how did you teach it to look for those things? So do you want to explain how you did the rest of it?
Sure. So, I mean, I basically just kind of explained exactly what I was looking for, and we took it kind of step by step. So I originally just spit out all of the players with all their positions, and I went through and I checked that everything was there. I was like, okay, that's right, that's right, that's right. Then we tried filtering it a little bit, and we kind of took it step at a time. And eventually I got it to the point where I was just kind of building this and making sure that these ranges were working correctly. And there were some issues there, making sure how it counted for zeros, for nulls, things like that. And we got all that figured out. And then essentially I went and I took it and I was saying, okay, now I want to basically run a formula, and I want you to set it versus the baseline, as I explained before. And is that running correctly? And I basically was running a baseline to make sure that it showed up as 0. And at first it wasn't. So I'm like, hey, what's our issues here? And it was like, okay, it shows up 0. finally. So I ran something else, and I looked at the comparison of that, and I looked at the comparison of 0, and I'm like, okay, this is 0. That makes sense. That's calculating correctly. We are good. So, it was kind of just taking it step by step, and, partially knowing already what I want, but also kind of like thinking, how can I make this better along the way?
And you, if I'm not mistaken, you used the offensive line metric as a teaching
Correct.
parameter for the AI software, right? Like, hey, you've now looked into the past. You're a machine. You've learned how to now find a correlate that works. Use that as an analogy, and now build out the code for all the other positions. Is that,
it was,
what you did,
it was basically, it was basically like, I found this is a very high rate, as you can see. This is the idea. I'm trying to find more like these. Like, help me come up with some code to be able to do that. And essentially what it came up with is it was taking for 8 positions. It was running hundreds of combinations, like going up by 0.05 and 40-yard dash, going up by 1 in vertical jumps, like things like that. I wanted to go 0.01 and 40-yard dash, but it was just taking way too long to generate, so we stuck with 0.05. But essentially it ran through all 8, and then it again ran through another 8 in combination. I wanted to do 3 filters, but again, it just it became too much, and it wasn't able to run it well, so we stuck with 2. And yeah, I don't know. So because we're on, we talked about the O-line stuff. Do you want to take a look at some of what I saw for the offensive line?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So offensive tackle, let's start there. So one they mentioned was 4.85 is the number they used where they saw the most success. But the other things I mentioned was better than 116 inches in the broad jump. Let's just do that, for example. So at least 116 inches in the broad jump for a tackle. So I click that. You can look, that's pretty solid numbers for just one. Up 7.7 in the mean for value is actually, that's weird, is the versus expected goes down, but everything else up 26% for Pro Bowl, up 13.3% all pro. It does seem that people who do well in the vertical jump get overdrafted. That's seemingly what its takeaway is here. But overall, it is a pretty expected thing. And when you look through all of these, it's basically what you said earlier, Sal. It's there is 116 inches for a broad jump, better than 4.52 in the 20-yard shuttle, better than 34 inches in the vertical jump. All these are very predictive. It's for the reason that good, compared to all the other single ones, these are some of the best ones, and it's as simple as big athletes tend to translate. And to Alex's question in the chat, as far as size, I didn't find too much with size, at least weight. Height there actually was one. So when I told it to do the double filter, so I said give me 2 and give me the best success here. It actually wanted me to do over 77 inches in height, and it wanted me to do max of 4.85 in the 40. And if we send that,
77 inches, you mean in wingspan?
No, height. So that would be 6'5".
So 6'5". Okay.
Yes. And you can see, no, that's not right. Hang on. Oh, I didn't click tackle. That's why. That's not right. That's way too many players. There we go. You can see there what maybe that was the issue for me. I didn't click tackle, but regardless, you can see way up. Filtered mean 27.5. Filter median up 38. Filter mean up 3.6. Up 17.3 against expected. Up 3 per year for approximate value. 64.7% more likely in Pro Bowl. 32.6% more likely against the baseline All Pro. 47.8% more likely to be a solid starter. 31% more likely to be a star. 24.5 are expectations. So it basically took some of those baseline things we're talking about the 489. 489 gives you a little bit more room, and there's are still a lot of good players in there. But if you look at it in the players who were just good, there is some crazy guys in here who were 6'5" and had the speed. You look at Trent Williams, Joe Staley, Lane Johnson, Terran Armstead, Brian O'Neill, Tristan Wirfs. I mean, just some fantastic players, and it's narrowing it down, saying, "Hey, these players really saw success."
It's like an old school police search, right? Where you narrow it down by like the traits, and so you start with you started with the one variable, you added the second, and you really narrow down like a high area of success. The question is it, this is going to be the question. Is this a sampling error because there are just so few guys who meet that criteria and there's bias inherent in the way it's analyzing it? Or is this really a real thing? I don't know. I tend to lean, when I think about it, towards it actually being real. Because again, you're tall, you're explosive and athletic, and you play O-line, and like there really aren't a lot of guys who meet those criteria, right?
Yeah.
And when you find them, they tend to be like Hall of Famers. So it is something to look at. So 6'5". So let's stop there for O-line, because you could do this for every position, but just for O-line, when you're watching these guys test this week and they get their measurements, make a mental note of who's 6'5" and above and who runs a 4.9 or better, or 4.89 or better on the 40. Just make a mental note of it. And let's just do an exercise. Let's keep track of that. Those two features. We should probably do it ourselves also, and let's just keep a list of these guys who meet that, and let's see how their careers turn out, at least how they perform, or where they get drafted. At least it's going to be fascinating to see who's on that list. Wouldn't be shocked if some of the top guys are in that category already, right? But you might find like a guy who's being talked about on day 3 or on day 2, and who might meet those criteria. It's fascinating to think about it that way.
Yeah. And I mean, to answer your question, I think it's a little bit of both. I think when you do multiple filters, I do think that there is an aspect to where it's just trying to find a certain amount of players that fit this, that are very good. But I do think why that's so successful is because that one filter on its own, the 40-yard dash, is so successful that they can throw anything in there to narrow it down a little bit more. And it's like, wow, these are the studs. So I do think the first one's more important, but it is worth looking at the other ones. But, it gave me a bunch of single ones you can look at. The ones to look at for 20-yard shuttle is one I think worth considering. That's one it gave me for tackle, guard, and center. It said important. That was the only thing I got for every single one other than 40-yard dash. And essentially it was 4.52 for tackle, 4.44 for guard, and 4.4 for center. So we can start out with just 4.52. Just want to show you guys for tackle. And you look, if I analyze this, what happened? Tackle 4.52. There it goes. And you can see, again, pretty strong numbers here with 10 over the mean, 11 over the median, another year and a half of starting, 4 per year in approximate value, up like 14 to 15%. The Pro Bowls, All Pros, solid starters, stars, and again, you see a lot of successful players who had these good shuttles. You see Dwayne Brown, Matt Light, Ryan Diem, Lane Johnson, Jake Matthews, Jordan Gross, Nate Solder, Eric Fisher, Anthony Castellano. There's like some 58 and plus here in approximate value for all top 10. I've actually seen that thrown around too, is I've seen people who use 20-yard shuttles, similar how we've talked about 40-yard dash, and like, hey, this is predictive. Look for this certain number. I can't remember exactly the number they use, but to me, that's just another part of how offensive linemen who are big and athletic are successful. And that's another one to keep an eye on, just looking for good 20-yard shuttle times.
Yeah, I think the number they're looking at is about it's like a 5.2 or a 5.1 second 5.20 like shuttle. I can look it up, but I remember being around that territory. But again, the point is, like, the shuttle is essentially short area movement and quickness, right? and lateral agility. So if you incorporate the 20-yard shuttle with height and with 40 time, you're basically looking for a tall, athletic, and agile lineman, which I mean, kind of when you start thinking of it that way, it's like, okay, yeah, you want that. But if you can quantify it and use hard metrics to look at that from testing, it does help simplify how you look at who these players are.
Yep. And we can move on to the other ones. We've talked about lineup. I'll just throw out the last couple things just so you have it. The combination for guards was 20-yard shuttle of 4.54 or better and a 40-yard dash of 5 seconds or better. And for center, it was a 20-yard shuttle of 4.4 or better with a 40-yard dash of 5.2 or better. That's what they found for the most successful for
5.2.
Yep. So they're basically saying tackle's the most important for 40-yard dash, and it's the least important for center. Center is the most important for the shuttle. Tackle is the least important for shuttle, and everywhere in between.
Yeah, it makes sense. Mm-hmm. It makes sense. Like if you think about the shuttle exercise, that's kind of what a center does, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of quick lateral movement involved in that position. It's not so much like speed, and it's not even explosiveness. It's like lateral agility. So it's interesting.
It's some strong correlations when you're looking at like 50% chance to be a Pro Bowler.
Yeah. No, it's interesting stuff. Yes, somebody asked if we could. It's Alex again. Who should program it to write a summary that's dumbed down for analytics people.
That's fair. I actually had something going where I was basically doing that. I didn't finish it yet. I'm still working out the kinks, but I was trying to find something that basically found thresholds for the downside. Like you don't want to be here because there's a far drop off if you go below this height, below this 40 for this position, and I was trying to program a value to that, about how valuable that drill is to that position, that drop off actually matters, and it was confusing to me, so I had to summarize it. So I can look into that.
This is the pollination factor. Yeah, so this is the single most important feature there is. If you're a poly and your hands in the dirt, you're going to be successful. If your hands in the dirt and you're poly, you'll find NFL success, or you can be a linebacker or safety. Like those are your options: hand in the dirt, linebacker, or safety.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there are some issues with this data set I got. I mean, I'm missing arm length, hand size, Polynesian, just some stuff missing.
Criminal record, car like Georgia car racing. Well,
that goes up. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, like we wanted to share this with you guys because Monty literally just did this. Like he just coded this thing, and he wanted to share it because it's cool and it's a new thing to what I know him. He's gonna basically ignore his real job for like the next 3 weeks, and he's just gonna do this, and he's gonna try to do it out. And obviously, as for anybody who uses AI at all in their own work, you know how this works. Like the more you use it, the faster it's going to get at coding and honing this down. I'm not going to get into the ethics of all of this, but the machine is gonna learn.
Your electric bill, guys. I'm sorry.
We're promoting AI on the exact same day that today we got reports that a bunch of AI simulations were done for war games by the Pentagon, and 95% of the time the AI chose to never surrender and to use a nuclear weapon to win the war. 95% of the time.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, let's promote Skynet. Well, just for the sake of the NFL combine.
My football analysis, though.
Monty is making our doom smarter, but that's fine. That's fine. We want better information for the combine. So. In any case, so why don't we try a couple of other positions here, just so people have like a point of reference to look at. O-line was a good like benchmark, and you can use it as like the foundational teaching tool for the AI. But what else did you learn from other positions?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously some that were more helpful than others. So we can kind of just go down the list here. So like quarterback, for example, I didn't really expect to get much from quarterback, and it definitely was less than other position for sure, but there was a little bit of correlation here. So the main thing it had was a broad jump better than 123 inches. It had a 40-yard dash of 4.55 or better, and it had weight of 235 as a singles. And then for the 2 filter had 3 cone drill of 6.9 seconds or better. So let's do that. So we'll do a 3 cone of 6.9 seconds or better. And it had, the other one was a height of 76 inches. So 6'2". So a minimum
6'4".
6'4". Oh, yeah.
So tall dude.
Yep. So let's see. Oh, yeah, you're right. 6'4", 76 inches. So, and maybe this one will end up being 10 matches. So essentially, and then look, some large numbers like we saw online. But granted, this is because there's 10 matches. Then that's kind of thing. And when you only have 10, ironically, no all pros out of this, but a lot of things otherwise. And you got,
who are the players?
Alex Smith, Joe Flacco, Andrew Luck. It's hard to believe Andrew Luck was ever an all pro. Josh Allen. I feel like these all pros are off here, but Carson Wentz, Marcus Mariota, Colin Kaepernick, Josh McCown, Blaine Gabbert, Luke McCown.
I don't think Josh Allen has been all pro, actually. I could be mistaken, but like first team all pro, I'm not. Let me look it up, actually. I'm not sure he has.
I mean, he was. I guess he was second team all pro.
He has never been first team all pro.
That's crazy. All right, maybe it's right. So
he's been second team all pro in 2020. He was he was all pro in 2022.
Okay. And this spreadsheet is a little bit outdated, so it might not have the most recent in there. I said it only went through 2022.
So that's not accurate. Yeah.
So
all right.
But regardless, you can see these numbers and you can see a lot of success, really good players here. And then if we just went, I'm just going to clear it and we go quarterback, let's just pick. So I think it said, let's see, I think it said broad jump of 123 inches. So we go a broad jump of at least 123.
And this is for what? For wide receivers?
Quarterback still.
Quarterbacks. So a 10-foot broad jump for a quarterback.
14.1, 21. This gives you 12 players. A filter mean up here. So you can see decent jumps for all these. And then Pro Bowl is 50% chance at a Pro Bowl. 50% starter chance rate, 16.7% star, and 58.3% chance to beat your draft expectations. These players are Cam Newton, Andrew Luck, Tyrod Taylor, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Geno Smith, Brad Smith, Seneca Wallace, Luke McCown, Mike McMahon.
Why did Luke McCown fail in the NFL?
Yeah, he's everywhere, huh?
Dude is like hanging out, waiting for his brother to get a job. This is crazy. He should be playing as an all pro right now.
Yeah. So I mean, weirdly, some like somewhat predicting things. I mean, I think it's nothing crazy. It's that some of these guys who are really good athletes tend to translate in today's NFL, especially.
But I think quantifying, and obviously this is very, very, very immature, like data. Like if you know AI, it's artificially unintelligent for a very long time until it develops real intelligence, right? So right now it's learning this stuff, so it's making mistakes, but it's like sort of generally accurate is how I would look at it.
Yeah.
The more Monty programs this, the more he runs the simulations, it's going to get smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter, and it's going to be much more accurate. But if you think about it, like you're actually setting some like numerical benchmarks, which is really interesting. It's not just like a general idea. Mm-hmm. It's telling you, hey, a quarterback should ideally be 6'4" or taller. That markedly improves his chances of being successful, which, we know is kind of true, right? Like, I mean, not all the great quarterbacks are above 6'4", obviously. Jackson Dart's only he's a 6'2", 6'3". I don't think it matters ultimately, as the only thing, but it is just easier to play in the pocket as a quarterback if you're taller because you can see over your linemen. You can see the entire field, which allows you to use more of the field, right? And you see guys who are smaller like Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, they cannot use the middle of the field because they can't see it. So it does kind of make sense.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, we can keep going. And to your question, Alex, I got to figure out how to post it, but I will be trying to post it. It's Monty Python. That's all right. That's a good one. So let's look at running back for example. So I'm gonna reset this filter, and running back has had a few. So I'll read off what I found here. I found a 40-yard dash better than 4.35, a 3-cone better than 6.7, and broad jump better than 127 inches. Those were the most successful numbers that you can find from any of these drills to be in those range. So if, for example, I would say a 4 through 5, and I'm a big believer that 40 doesn't make a running back, but this is more wrong side. This is more just saying, like, trying to find a successful guy. It's not saying the other guys who run slower will not be successful. It's just saying that these guys tend to be successful. So up to 4.35, we have 130 players, and decently successful. About a five approximate value better, about a half a season of starts better, about a half an approximate value a year. You go up to 5 to 10%, and a lot of these with a 20.8% Pro Bowl chance, 4.6 All Pro, 23.1 solid starter. So oh wait, sorry, I didn't click running back. Hang on, sorry about that. I read off some gibberish to you right there.
Yeah, these numbers seem low actually.
Okay. So it goes up 6.4 and 6, and then the starts go up about a season. The approximate values for a year is about a half. See, this is right. Okay. And then 33.3% Pro Bowl, 11.1% All Pro, solid 33.3% solid starters. And this one is only 9 players. So it's basically just saying, Chris Johnson, Lamar Miller, Darren McFadden, Ben Tate, Jahavid Bess, Cedric Pierman, and that's kind of really where it dies out. RIP LaMichael James didn't work out. So that's kind of where it is of that. And I know this is just saying some of the freaks of the freaks have worked out at the running back position. But what its combination told me was, again, limited size, but it said if I click running back and I go guys who were at least 6'1", and guys who had a 4.45 or better. So if we go 4.45, 4.45 here, and I analyze this, so we get 9 players again, but 28.1 up from the mean and 32 up from the median. So this is some significant jumps. 44.4% Pro Bowl rate, 22.2% All Pro rate, 66.7 starter rate. So, and these are the type of players who show up when you look at a guy who ran a 4.45 and is at least 6'1". You see Adrian Peterson, Matt Forte, Deuce McAllister, Larry Johnson, Darren McFadden, Kenyon Drake, Beanie Wells, Musa Smith, Luke Staley. So, I think one of the takeaways here is when you find a guy like that, even if it's a Kenyon Drake, for example, like guys who are that big and play that fast can still tend to find a spot in this league and be successful players.
Yeah. No, I think you're identifying, though. I think I'm less concerned about it finding the all pros, because quite frankly, a lot of that data, if you think about how it's analyzing it, how I imagine it's retrospectively analyzing that data, is it's saying, well, how many all pros have there been, and compare them to like everybody else, and what features do they have? And if you have if you're a running back and you have breakaway home run speed, you're more likely to be an all pro than the guy who doesn't, right? Like you can have a good running back, a very good running back who doesn't run above like a 4.5 or a 4.48 or something like that, who doesn't have home run breakaway speed, but he's outstanding at breaking tackles or forcing missed tackles, and he's outstanding at yards after contact, and he's just a workhorse for you. But those guys don't get selected for the Pro Bowl or all pro. The guys who get all pro are the guys like Saquon Barkley or Bijan Robinson or Adrian Peterson, the home run hitters, right? So if you have a guy like Adrian Peterson or Chris Johnson, in your database, they're going to skew the data a little bit, right? They're going to make it look good. But what I think it's interesting for is, if you're thinking like, I want to use a tool to help me identify a big swing that I want to take on day 3, right? Like I'm trying to pick between some players on day 3, and I have some traditional metrics I've looked at. I like some of these guys' traits, but what are the most predictive tools of finding a possible diamond in the rough, a home run? like I think this kind of stuff gets very useful. Like you should know the top guys already, right? Like the top 50 guys. That's what real scouting's about. You should have a good idea for those things. But like there are guys who get taken later in the draft to become like studs, and you ask yourself, how did everybody miss on that guy? And then I bet if you go back, a lot of them will have the traits that you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think it does matter at the top in some sense when, a guy's already a top pick and then you see him test like this and you're like, for example, the O-line, you see, you're picking, don't wrong, like we made the right decision picking Andrew Thomas, but like Tristan Wirfs made it pretty clear. He ended up being the third or fourth offensive tackle taken. He made it pretty clear that his athleticism is going to translate at that position. And he fell, and he was already supposed to be like a top 10, top 15 offensive tackle pick. I think it's pretty safe to say that he created a floor for himself, and that should have been valued more.
Right. I mean, he still went like what 12th or something overall.
Yeah,
right?
but he was he was the fourth tackle taken.
Right, exactly.
Becton,
In a tackle heavy class, he got taken last out of the four big tackles, and quite frankly, I love Andrew Thomas. But Tristan Wirfs has had a slightly better career than Andrew Thomas. I think Andrew Thomas has made up a lot of ground. He's
starting out hotter and he's been healthier.
Right, but those two were like when in retrospectively, those two were by far like the best tackles in that class, and you should have think about what made them what they were. Wirfs, as you said, was an all-around athlete, like a freak generational type athlete playing tackle.
Yep.
The broad jump was like 120 inches. His I think he ran a 4.8 something. Like he was a freak, or a 4.7 something even, if I recall.
I think it was 4.8 something. I think it was 4.85 or something.
Andrew Thomas tested really well. He also has gargantuan fucking python arms. He has like 36.5-inch arms or something, right? And he has massive hands, and he has like a huge punch. Like there were traits about Andrew Thomas that like when you watched him, you should have just known there's a good chance it can translate. So yeah, those two should have been 1 and 2. I bet if you look back at Jedrick Willis and Mekhi Becton, they don't have these traits, right? I'm willing to bet they don't. I'm confident Mekhi Becton doesn't. I don't think Jedrick Willis did either.
Yeah, no, and I mean that's the thing is Mekhi Becton was looked at as a great athlete because he was a good athlete for his size.
Right.
But what this is saying is, I don't care if you're a good athlete for your size. I just need you to be a good athlete.
Right. Exactly. It's fascinating. We could go position group by position group, but why don't you? Since you've been doing it all day, can you kind of just summarize to everybody like what you found in each position group and like? You can do a simulation, but just like, is there anything that stood out to you? Like, oh, I can't believe it showed me that.
Let's see. I'll try to. So, I mean, a couple of standout. So wide receiver is where I was going next, for example. And I guess the surprising thing to me in some ways that wide receiver really didn't have a correlation. It truly didn't. For example, the two it spit out at me was basically it said weighing over 230 pounds. So it's basically just trying to get like the Calvin Johnsons and the Andre Johnsons and things like that in there. So it's just like trying to get some of those big athletic freaks. But then the other one it spit at me was 40-yard dash. You want to guess what a 40-yard dash it wanted you to be under?
5.
4.8.
Yeah.
It said the success rate is best if you're under 4.8. So it didn't even want you to go lower. It didn't want to go It's just saying like, fuck 40-yard dash. Fuck it. It's
basically telling you this is a useless test for wide receivers, essentially.
That's essentially what it said. And the other one I texted you about this. The other one that was basically useless was defensive back. And at one point I'm gonna
before you go there, I want to bring this up because this is a good point. Every year Alex brings it up again. This is absolutely correct. There is actually a negative correlation on block for receivers who run faster than a 4.35.
So let's take a look at it.
And there has been some of the guys who are the fastest receivers, the guys who blow up the combine, so to speak, they end up being just nothing burgers in the NFL. It's a very interesting phenomenon. And maybe it's just because they're there because they're just fast and there's nothing good about them otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, it still has some positive in here. I mean, you still get the Julios and the Calvins in here. I wonder if you went more for like a 4.29 or something, the guys who break the 4.3.
Yeah.
and get down. This is where you get negative. Is once you get to 4.29. That's
there
where
you go, Alex. Under 4.3. There you go. Yeah, I mean that's bad. Everything is negative. Like, so does that mean being fast makes you a bad receiver? No, not intrinsically, but being really fast might mean that you're only there because you're really fast, right? And there's not much else to your game.
I mean, and to look at that, versus expected, it's pretty bad. Like you beat the not under for your chances to beat draft expectations.
Yep. And before you move on to the next thing, I want Alex is really participating, and I appreciate it in this one. He brought up another point, which was he has two messages here. A cool idea is if we could select physical traits, testing numbers, and certain production numbers or metrics to get the intersection of traits in production, and then like wide receivers who are 5'10", 5'11", who had a 3.0 yards per route run in their final season. So what Alex is getting at, for those who don't know, is there are advanced metrics that are already well measured. PFF keeps a lot of this stuff. Pro Football Reference has a lot of this stuff. That measure certain, advanced statistics that I think give you more information than just how many yards you have or yards per reception. For wide receivers, one that is believed to be predictive of success is yards per route run at the college level. We certainly talk about it a lot. Anything above 3 yards per route run in college is really elite territory. And what does it mean? It means for every route you run, if you divide the total number of yards you produce divided by the total number of routes, you get whatever number. If it's above 3, you're in very, very rare elite territory. It's guys like Malik Neighbors. It's guys this year like Mekhi Lemon. I want to say Skylar Bell is above 3. And there's a few guys there, but there's not a lot. Usually it's only like 2 or 3 guys per year who are in that territory. So yeah, could this tool could it be tweaked to develop capturing a combination of traits and a very specific data analytic point from production?
Yeah, that'd be cool to try to figure out. Maybe I can add more over time, try to see if I can get some exports from PFF so I can add to this. Be interesting. And to DKit's point, I mean, he's like, I don't think this really works for wide receivers, and maybe there is more. Maybe I don't have arm length and hand size in this. Maybe a combination with that would get you something. But right now it's just, it's 230 and so this is the combination it said 230 and runs better than a 4.5. That's what it said. And again, that was just the big physical freaks that we all know, the Calvin Johnsons of the world and things like that. So Vincent Jackson's in there, Brennan Marshall, guys like that. So it's not a huge group, but that's the one thing that they found. Chase Claypool found some success in that area along those lines. The other thing, I texted you about, Sal, that was really interesting to me. That's what was interesting to me was how little correlation it was for defensive backs. And we've talked about this in our previous episode of safeties and how there's no correlation with safeties. I'm sure that's why when I asked you, you predicted it. It's how you knew. You said safeties. And that's one thing I want to change is it groups cornerbacks and safeties together. I want those separated to see, because I'm sure it matters more for corner. But it's insane that there's no correlation, even with cornerbacks included in that. It's saying, it essentially tells me there's none. I'll read you what I got. It said it wanted you to be over 180 pounds, and that was so small. It was like 1 or 2 approximate value more. And it wanted you to have a 40-yard dash better in 5 seconds. That's what it said. It said don't run a 5.1 and make different. And then when I did the duel, when it was supposed to give me 2 together to get a better one, it couldn't do it. It gave me the same stat twice. I broke it, like it didn't know what to do. It couldn't find a combination that created better than just that one. So it just did them twice for all of them. So it truly is no correlation.
So after you told me that, I went back and looked at the PFF article on this from 2020 and looked at their WAR compared to how they tested. And if you really look at the charts for safety and cornerback, almost nothing has an impact, like a positive impact. Like it's for cornerbacks, it's like a flat line. Like literally nothing was predictive. of success at the NFL level from testing, not your height, weight, 40 time, bench, broad jump, vertical. Vertical probably was the most positive, and it was barely detectable. 3-cone, shuttle, you're either just above 0 or just below 0, basically meaning there's no signal here. There was no signal from testing for cornerbacks. For safeties, it was the same for positive. There were some negative signals. If you ran a good 40, you were a worse safety and you had less success.
Yeah.
And especially relative to where you were drafted, saying that maybe guys get overdrafted at safety because of their testing from running. It doesn't mean shit, right? Same thing was true for the shuttle time and for the 3-cone. But basically, in terms of impact, there was like nothing for DBs, right? So testing, I think the take-home point is combine testing doesn't tell you anything about these defensive backs, right? And there's now multiple,
not even height and weight. Like
there's just multiple data sets over time, not just your tool, but like a lot of things that are showing you that that's a reality. And everybody fixates on the 40 time for these corners. And I understand you want to make sure you have somebody who has some baseline long speed, but the way the game has evolved, where not a lot of teams play pure man, right? There are very few teams that ask their corners to go out there and play just man coverage, down in, down out, right? Because that's kind of where you need to be a burner, right? Where you're like, this is your guy, and I got to run with that guy and keep up with him down the field. Most defenses are shifting to match principles, a mixture of zone and man, and there's help over the top. So these things probably don't matter anymore, not like they used to, perhaps. And for safety, I think it just makes safety's the quarterback of the defense. It's a cerebral position. It's more about, are you able to diagnose things that the offense is showing you pre-snap? Are you able to communicate that to your teammates and adapt to where the play is going, read leverage? None of that stuff is athletic traits. There are some, obviously, like you want to have a guy who has closing speed, and it would be nice to have sideline to sideline kind of range. But ultimately, success at the safety position is not about like that stuff. It's about being able to diagnose quickly and make plays on the football. So I think the DB stuff is really exciting during the combine because everybody wants to see how the corners run, but it really means nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really doesn't. I was shocked about how they couldn't find any correlation of it. They basically wanted to be on the farthest end. That way it didn't limit anybody and put you below the baseline. So the other thing, another one that kind of caught my eye was linebacker. Linebacker is a little bit interesting. And linebacker, the main thing I learned is it valued the bigger, heavier linebackers. That's what it valued. So for the singles, it told me it liked linebackers that were 260 pounds, and it only wanted you to be 5'10", but it wanted you to be at least 260 pounds. So for example, if we looked at
you're talking about off-ball linebacker?
Yes.
Or is this including edge rushers?
It might include some edge rushers.
Not a lot of 260-pound off-ball linebackers in the NFL right now.
It probably includes some off-balls, or some edges. That's
gotta be a lot of edges.
Again, something to tweak with this.
Yeah.
But let's see. So just show it. And I'm sure, let's analyze it. I bet you we'll see some edges here. So we analyze this. Did I do linebacker? No, I didn't. I got to click linebacker.
I'm willing to bet it's pulling up your defensive end types,
Yeah, we have the ends, but probably there's off ball. Yeah, like Terrell Suggs. Yeah, for sure it is. So that's something I'm gonna have to find a way to get out. So I guess linebacker isn't very useful to you then, because that's that. The one thing I'll say, I guess, because it plays in the D end, is it wants you to be 250 pounds plus, which, I mean, honestly, you could just look at this in a lot of sense with edge rushers, even though it's getting grouped with the off balls. And it liked things like a 3-cone better than 695. It liked a 20-yard shuttle better than 418. And it bet like the 3-cone better than 7.5. So I'll have to find a way to separate those. That's, some things we're working through, but let's see. We won't go too much more into that.
Well, before you go further,
yep.
Brett Coleman tweeted about this yesterday. Did you see what Brett wrote?
Nope.
Okay. his tweet. I'll read it to you guys. Reminder: when looking at edges in this year's class, if you look at the top 10 edges in pressures every year for the last decade, these were their average measurables. Okay, for edges: 6'3", 262 pounds, 33 and 3/8-inch arms, 1.63 10-yard split, 7.02 second three cone, 35-inch vertical, 120-inch broad jump, and an RAS score of 877. It's power rushers all day. And so, that kind of correlates to what you're saying if we're just talking about edges, right? And pass rushing DNs and edges. Like the power rushers have had more traditional success year in, year out than just the pure speed guys.
Let's just take a look at the end and linebacker fun. So what'd you say? So it's 6'3".
Mm-hmm.
What were the other ones that Coleman said?
262 pounds.
So let's go 260.
33 and 3/8-inch arms.
I don't have arms, so we'll keep going.
1.63 10-yard split.
Okay.
So make it like a 165. Do you have a 10-yard split?
No.
Do you have a three cone?
I have a three cone.
7.02 three cone. So make it like a 7.05 or something like that. Three cone.
Okay.
35-inch vertical.
35-inch vertical.
120-inch broad.
And then 120-inch broad.
I'm curious who it pops up here.
All right. So apply the filters. 15 players matching our D-end and linebackers. Some pretty good success. Not some as high as the others ones we got, but definitely some successful guys here. It brought up Mario Williams, Chandler Jones, Michael Johnson, Jadeveon Clowney, Emmanuel Agba, Bradley Chubb, Nick Perry, Rashawn Gary, Kareem Martin, and Amaris James.
Okay. I mean, some mixed results, but some really good players too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think Brett's just kind of eyeballing it, and he's using the top 10. I don't know what he's defining as top 10. I don't know if he's using sack numbers or pass rush win rate. I'm not sure what he's using to define it, but I think it does tend to kind of add more to what this thing is telling you, that you got to be over 260 pounds, and you got to be a big guy. You got to be a big kind of a power rusher to have sustained success at the NFL level, at least playing edge.
Agreed.
Yeah, and the small guys, it's not that they can't be successful, but it's harder. Like our edge rushers are smaller, Brian, what is Brian Burns, like 250?
Yeah, about 50. Look, I think it's a similar takeaway we got with the offensive line. Big athletic freaks play in the NFL.
Yeah, Brian Burns, when he tested out of Florida State in 19, he was 6'4", almost 6'5", 248, but 33.8-inch arm length. So he had freakishly long arms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Abdul Carter, and his 10-yard split was 154. So it's under that number that Brett put. And his three cone was 701. So it's under the number that Brett put. So other than his weight, everything was there. For Abdul Carter, I don't think he tested. He just weighed in. He came in at 6'2", 250. And his arm length was 33 inches. So he's actually like a little bit of an outlier on the low end. But we don't have testing numbers for Abdul Carter.
Yeah. Nope. It only goes through 2020.
You have some. He had a pro day 40. He was a 4.48, and he ran a 4.35 on the short shuttle. He did have a 120-inch broad jump on his pro day, and a 33.5-inch vertical. So he had some of the stuff that we're talking about.
Yep. Yeah. So another takeaway I had was, one thing we always talk about is that athletic tight ends, like it's hard to use production for tight ends in the NFL, but if you look at the athletes, those are the guys who tend to transfer. That's something everybody talks about. But when I actually went to go into it and see which ones play, it didn't really have anything that was that crazy to me. It said a 40-yard dash better than 4.45. Like that makes sense, but like I don't think it was crazy results if I remember correctly. Let's see. Yeah, decent results, but certainly some good ones there. So, and that shows some really good guys. And then the other one they had was a broad jump of 120 inches. So tight end, broad jump, 128 inches. That was only 9 players, but yeah, I mean, this one wasn't crazy results. There's some things, but you got really good athletes. You kind of have to go really far in that one. That's not that many people. So not that crazy, but the combination that they had that they were saying gives good results is they wanted you to do at least 260 pounds, and they said ran only a 4.7, just ran at best or at worst a 4.7. So over here,
4.7's fast for
Yeah.
these guys.
yeah. So, but it's still 88 players. It's not like that's pretty big sample size for. Oh wait, I didn't click tight end. Never mind. Yeah, I keep doing that. All right, 9. So it's 9. But so you got this basically brings you 44.4% Pro Bowl chance, 33.3% All Pro, 33.3% solid starter, 33.3% star, 33.3% draft extent. They're basically saying a third of these guys are great. And the list comes out as Jason Witten, Rob Gronkowski, Jimmy Graham, Jermaine Gresham, Vance McDonald, Cole Kmet, Ben Trope, Kellen Davis, Brad Cottam.
Not a bad list.
Nope. But again, that's where you kind of really start to filter it down. But I guess so. The takeaway though is to look at 4.45 or better on its own, and broad jump of 128 inches on its own. But if you want to get big guys and you want to give big guys their fair shake, you want to have 4.7 or better. Let's see. We did a little. I don't. We were just talking about the end. I guess we can talk a little bit about the D end. What they came up for that. So for D end, it said a vertical jump of better than 40 inches, a 40-yard dash of better than 4.5. So that's going to get you the Dwight Freeney's, Montez Sweats, some really athletic guys in there. 4 forwards essentially at the end. Height, it wants to be 79 inches or better. That's some big guys. And 3-cone drill, 6.9 or seconds or better. So I mean, essentially that's we see these guys more and more, but those guys are the big freaks. Those are the type of guys that Brett Coleman's talking about to some extent. Those are big dudes who has a lot of success. And the combination they had is 76 inches or better with a bench press of 33 inches. So none of those, but they just said tall and strong.
Tall and strong for the DNs, is what he's getting at. I think Brett's saying the same thing. And again, it's not fully predictive of success, but I think what we're saying here is your probability for success, if you define it as a guy who has a long career, plays a lot, and has a better chance of being a Pro Bowler or All Pro, goes up substantially when you hit these thresholds, is what we're saying. D-Kid asked an interesting question. Is there a way to put the names and ask AI to spit out all the correlative traits of these guys? Yeah, I don't think you can do it. Can you do it in this program? I'm not sure.
No, I mean, I don't know how.
It'd be a different program. I mean, I think just Gemini could do that if you just put in the names.
For sure. Like, I don't know if I could build like a Python script that's going to help us with anything with that, but I'm sure AI would have something to say about that could help.
While you discuss that, I'm gonna I'll run a little experiment here. Okay.
Okay.
I want you guys to give me 5 edge rushers / defensive ends that what the combine testing trades that these players have most core. Okay. All right. So who are the give me 5 guys.
Let me run one
Myles
of my
Garrett.
things. Give us a list. Myles Garrett. Let's say. That showed up on there. Mario Williams showed up on here.
Okay.
You guys feel free to add any in the chat. Connor Barwin, I think, is an interesting name here.
Let me just get to this in.
Rad throughout Max Crosby.
Yeah, well, let's use 5 guys. So we're going to say Myles Garrett, Mario Williams, Max Crosby. Give me another one. Give me 2 more. Nick Bosa, should we use him?
Sure. Nick
And then-
Bosa.
And how about Micah? He's a bit of an outlier in size, right? So
Sure.
let's see what it tells me. All right, so this is take it for with a grain of salt. Number 1, the elite 10-yard split. The most critical trait that these players share is a dominant get-off. A fast 10-yard split is most predictive of NFL success for edge rushers for the more predictive than the full 40-yard dash. I think we already knew that. Superior vertical jump. These players all have an elite vertical jump above 35 inches. Myles Garrett was 41 inches. Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Mario Williams, 40.5 inches. Max Crosby, 36 inches. Weight adjusted speed outliers. The players are not just fast, they are fast for their massive frames. Modern scouting does value mass adjusted speed above raw 40 times. Micah Parsons ran a 4.3940 at 246. Mario Williams clocked a 4.66 40 at nearly 300 pounds in 2006, an unprecedented feat for that weight. And Myles Garrett ran a 4.64 at 272. Now, this goes against a little bit of what you're saying, right? Like that. Was that part of linebackers or was that part of a different position? Where you said
that was D.
O-line. Okay. That was D-end. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, I mean, it's kind of including that. Change of direction and bend, agility drills. The 3-cone drill did correlate, according to them. And it was, again, they all had like really good 3 cones. And I think that's kind of where it landed. Now, again, this is AI, so we'll see. You know, I don't know how much it's able to really learn and know this, but a lot of what it's saying is what you're saying. You know, like just it's very interesting stuff. But I think that this, like, it's saying not just size, but size relative to your explosiveness, right? The combination of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just saying when we got these big athletes, and let's just do the combination just to see. So for what it said was 76 inches, so at least 76 inches tall, and it wanted a bench press of 33 inches. Let's see how that correlates, because that's an interesting one. So, because that really, first time we've seen bench kind of show up. And that brought up 8 matches. We see like 33 to 37% over the baseline, or 33 to 37 more points over the baseline approximate value, 3.5 games more starting. The Pro Bowl rate 37.5, All Pro 37.5, solid starter 62.5. And we got JJ Watt, Mario Williams, Myles Garrett, Brian Thomas, Igor Slansky, Ryan Dennessy, Adam Carricker, and Margus Hunt. I mean, you see obviously being carried heavily by these top guys, but you still see some good production among these bottom guys, 18, 22, 23, 39. I mean, that's still like producers. These two are, solid starters. So there's something there.
Fascinating. Do you want to go over any more groups, or
let's see? Let's look. Anything
you haven't done D-line. I think that's where we're missing.
I haven't done D tackle. So yeah, let's
interior D-line is worth doing.
So yeah, let's do defensive tackle. That's another fun one to watch. So defensive tackle. This is what it had. It had a 3-cone drill better than 7.15, a 40-yard dash better than 4.75, or a height better than, or no, worse. So this is interesting. Height, right? Is that what it's saying? No, it's saying height. Hang on. What is that? That is, so I don't know, height greater than 78 inches, yet greater than 78 inches. So Okay, so let's see. Let's run one of these. So let's start with the 3 cone 715. So if I go to 715, 3 cone, and I go defensive tackles. Let's see what we got here. It's only 9 players. You got Aaron Donald, Fletcher Cox, Chris Hovan, Tyson Alalu, Nick Fairley, Taven Bryan, Turk McBride, Chris Cooper, Milton Williams. Milton Williams doesn't even have the AV here because it's so outdated.
Yeah.
Look at that. So that's even without that. But you can see even like, I'm not as familiar with some of these guys, but I know Nick Fairley, but like some really good numbers here. You're just missing a star here with Chris Hovan. So that one translated pretty well. And then the combination they have, this was actually another bench press one. So let's see what they say. Bench press was a minimum of 26 inches or 26 reps and a 4.8. So let's see. So big and fast. So 4.8. 0.8, and then we're going to click defensive tackle, and let's see what we get for here. So we got 8 players. They're a good 30 points over the approximate value baseline. 50% Pro Bowl, 37.5 All Pro, 50% solid starter. So a lot of good players in here. You got, and some of the same names. You got Aaron Donald, Fletcher Cox, Geno Atkins, Tommy Harris, Tank Johnson, Mike Martin, again, Milton Williams, who isn't even developed here based off of these numbers, is showing up again. And, that's a guy who, got predicted by these stats essentially.
Well, let's dissect it. Bench press. On the interior, it intrinsically makes sense that it matters, right? You're talking about, you don't have a runway. An edge rusher has a runway, right? Like an edge rusher can line up off the line of scrimmage and give himself a little bit of a move, like a momentum start and a runway to generate speed to power. Interior D linemen don't have any of that. They at the snap, they're in contact. So to generate push into the pocket, to generate penetration into the pocket, they need to win essentially a leverage battle in a short area. And that bench press is definitely part of it. Now, this is where I think being some of these guys are wrestlers, and that helps a lot because they really are good at understanding leverage and using core power in a short area. But at the end of the day, you still need to have strong arms. You need to have strong upper body, power. And I think the bench press makes a lot of sense for the interior D line, where it maybe doesn't make as much sense for the offensive tackles or the D ends.
And, I think it's interesting that it's being used as a secondary stat. It's not necessarily being used as, if you're going to filter by one, this is successful. But essentially they're saying, like, if you're athletic, I don't necessarily care if you're 300 pounds. You don't have to be 300 pounds. But if you can move guys like you're 300 pounds and you're also can have the athleticism, then like you're successful. I think it's in its way, it's trying to say like, look, I'm not trying to take out a guy like Aaron Donald or Milton Williams because they're a little bit lighter, but they're strong fucks. Like there's ways to try to keep these guys included.
Aaron Donald never lost reps.
Nope.
At the line of scrimmage, not in the NFL, not in college. At the end of the day, he was just viewed as a guy who people were afraid to take because he was what is he, 270 something pounds or whatever when he came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they just couldn't get over his height and his weight, even though he never looked weak in college. He never looked like he got bullied. He always won. So kind of goes back to like the basics, right? It goes back to the tape. And if you see these guys winning in that short area, they're generally strong as hell. And that's all this is telling you, right? They've got to be strong as hell. And yeah, it would be good to be a good athlete too.
Yep. So yeah, man, that's all the positions I had here. I'll make sure at some point before the this combine weekend to post some of these numbers so we can all go back together and compare which guys here were successful. But if you're at this point in this episode, you already know that I'm posting it. So we'll do that at some point, and I think there's gonna be some cool takeaways.
He's gonna tweak it. He's gonna work on it. And absolutely, he's gonna have you guys mess with it when he thinks it's ready to go. It's a crazy fun thing for him to do, and and I'll say something nice about Monty for once. He could have sat on this for a long time and just kept tweaking it to make it look perfect, but he was really excited about showing you guys like what he's worked on, knowing full well that there are a lot of glitches in this that need to be worked out, but still like developing this as a cool tool. And I think that, again, the more you use it, the way AI functions it's just going to get smarter and smarter, and it's going to be more precise with its data analysis. So I'm looking forward to what this looks like in 3 weeks if you keep using it. I think it could be very, very cool.
I think a lot of it is data issues. I need to get better data to be doing this on.
Yeah, I don't know where it's drawing its data from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something to look at. But if you can, I don't know if you can direct it to take data from very specific sources. That would be very interesting.
I can do it with Python, so I'll have to mess around.
And if possible, maybe we should do the stuff with there are just the advanced metrics, like let's just say using PFF advanced data as a benchmark. I don't know if it's allowed to use that since that's a paid subscription, but if it could access
there's ways.
Yeah. If we could access those advanced things, like by position group, asking it, hey, which of the advanced metric data sets are most predictive of AAV at the NFL level based on college metrics? And I'm like for running backs, for example, I would be shocked if it didn't say missed tackles forced and yards after contact. I think by far those are the most likely things to predict success, but I don't know. I'm curious what it shows, right? And or yards per route run for a wide receiver. I think that's correct, but we don't know. It would be fun to play with it until we can get it to do that.
I agree. Yeah. We seem to, we're tracking and noticing correlations in those things, but we haven't necessarily gone back and confirmed those correlations.
Yeah. And again, I'll bring it back to like, it's fun to look at the stuff. Obviously Monty and I are both like, we have just a natural bend towards like looking at advanced stats and this kind of stuff and trying to like sometimes work backwards from there. I know I do that plenty, right? Like, especially when I'm scouting guys on like the potential day 3 guys, right? I think that everybody knows who the top guys are. Like, it's not a big deal, but what's really fun is going through like the data and using specific set analysis and stuff when you use like, whether it's PFF or, Pro Football Reference. And then you say, well, who's really good at this and who's in the draft, who's really good at this that nobody's talking about. And if you just like do narrow searches based on specific parameters, you're going to find names. You're going to be like, really, that guy's that high? And I'm always going to use the example again, the yards per route run. There was a guy in the draft 2 years ago who just had insane yards per route run and advanced metrics, but his traditional testing was kind of crappy and people didn't think he was fast enough to play, and he slid to the 5th round. But if you just looked at him in advanced stats as a wide receiver, you would have been like, this guy's a 1st round pick. He's got to go in the 1st round. You know who I'm talking about?
Sure.
Puka.
Mm-hmm.
Puka Nacua had absurd advanced stats in his final year at BYU, like literally off the charts on every metric that matters. And people just couldn't get over the fact that he ran a slow 40, and he didn't look fast on tape. But if you watch Puka, there's nothing about his game that looks slow. It's just that speed is not how he primarily wins. He's just a great route runner and he's highly productive like that. There's something to that, right? Like the data is the data. It shows you guys who are good at producing. And I think we, like looking at that stuff, like how Alex brought up, I think that's going to be an interesting adjunct to do maybe separately and then find a way to merge these things, right?
Yeah.
One, it would be fun. So,
and I think there's other things to keep in mind when I do this. Like, for example, with the offensive line thing, where we've really found a strong correlation in there, is we had 19 players to go off. Like, that's a pretty solid sample size. Well, some of these were like 8, 9 players, maybe saying, hey, a correlation only counts here if we have 15 players. And that's something to tweak with and see what we can kind of find.
So I'm going to go through the yards per route run of like the top guys here of the receivers, just as an example. Right now, I think the consensus is that Carnell Tate is likely going to be the first wide receiver off the board. He had a yards per route run of 3.02, so elite. And I'm not going to go through all of his grades, but basically he tested elite. I mean, his production was elite. Mekhi Lemon, yards per route run, 3.13. Again, elite. And again, everything else elite. So not surprising those two are like viewed as like borderline top 10 type players. Jordan Tyson, yards per route run, 2.37. Really good, but not as high as the other guys. Now, there are factors that could figure into that, but that's just the data. Denzel Boston, actually better than him, 2.44. Really good, solid numbers, and all around, very good production number. Casey Concepcion, 2.46. So again, same bucket. Chris Bell, 2.55, same bucket. Omar Cooper Jr., 2.55, same bucket. Jeremy Bernard, 1.7. All right, so
that's the interesting thing, I think, where you can use a correlation like this where I'm using is you might say, there is a mishmash of good and bad players in like the 2.1 to 2.8. And like there's some really good players in there. There's also some bad players. You don't get much from that. That might be the takeaway, but you might be, hey, if you get over 3, you're very successful. If you get under 2, yeah, good luck, buddy. Like that might be your takeaways if you really analyze it.
Yeah. I'm going to go through a few more just so you have perspective. Elijah Surratt, a guy I like a lot. People loved him for a while. Now they don't love him. It's weird, but now he's being viewed as like maybe he's a 3rd round pick, right? Elijah Surratt is a 2.39. He's basically the same, from that metric as a guy like, Casey Concepcion or Denzel Boston or even Jordan Tyson. He's right in there in the production numbers. Obviously not as explosive as those guys, but if you look at his advanced like stats, it's the same. Zach Branch, 2.57, right? Now, he's being viewed as, I don't know where he's going to go, 2nd, 3rd round, but his game is very specific. It's a lot of short stuff, but still, at the end of the day, production is production, right? Skylar Bell, the guy from UConn, who we both really like, 3.13. Now, it's UConn. He's playing against lesser competition, but still, 3.13 is 3.13. It's highly productive. And then there are guys who are getting love who are not as good, right? So here's a guy, like people are loving Deion Burks, the small slot receiver from OU. 1.45 yards per route run, dude. 1.45.
And hey, that might go into this. He might be a guy who runs in the 4.2s. And what did we find out about guys who run the 4.2s?
He's fast. He's very fast, right?
Yep.
And so again, a lot of these guys are bunched together. And the question is, if you believe that stat, would you rather have a guy like Surratt who you can get in the 3rd, maybe, or late 2nd, or are you going to swing early on a guy like Denzel Boston, right? Well, again, he's a better player. I'm not saying he's not, but how much is the value difference between those guys? Is it worth 2 rounds, right? And I think that's the kind of stuff to look at. Here's one who's, I think, really interesting, who's not getting enough love, but he's another slot receiver who I think is a better player than Deion Burks, and that's Mississippi State's Brennan Thompson. Same size, about 5'9". He's smaller. He's lighter. He's 170. But, I mean, 2.77 yards per route run. That's really good, especially at that size.
Yeah.
Putting up a lot of production. And there's just a bunch of guys who are like bunched together. And I think you're seeing that people are saying, oh, there's a lot of good players. They're not great, but they're a lot of solid guys, and their production is all like pretty darn good, above average. And it goes into like day 3. And you just keep going one by one through these guys. Obviously Bryce Lance is another outlier in North Dakota State, so take it, FCS, take it with a grain of salt, but still, this is Trey Lance's brother, 3.57 yards per route run, and elite grades and everything. So again, like, do you believe the data or do you not, right? And how much value does it hold? It's something to keep track of.
For sure.
Anyway, we're approaching an hour and 45. Do you have any other thoughts here today?
Not really. We'll keep an eye on the players this weekend. I mean, we have the linebackers and D line tomorrow. We have DBs and tight ends on Friday, running backs, quarterbacks, and wide receivers on Saturday, and O line, some of our favorite big boys on Sunday. So we'll see who can break that 4-9, if anybody. Keep an eye on that and some of these other numbers we went over.
Yep. Well, so we still have, so first of all, thank everybody for being here. You guys have been awesome. I know this was a very technical episode, and we're kind of walking through software development through AI for this tool that Monty's doing, but I think it's cool. While you're here, please hit the like button. Make sure to hit that like button, help us on YouTube. And if you have not, please subscribe to He's a Giant. It helps us grow. Hit subscribe, hit the like. We appreciate you guys for doing that. You can always find us on Twitter. You can find us at He's a Giant Pod, me at Queens_guy, Monty at MONTECRI5TO. This episode was about showing you a tool that Monty was developing, and he's going to keep tweaking it. It's really cool. We're going to get through the combine, and I think next week we'll have a little bit of input on post-combine reaction of how guys did, risers, fallers. I think we're going to get the beginning of information coming out of free agency next week, because free agency's like, I think tampering period starts like either the 9th or the 10th or something like that. So next week, what is it? March 4th is when we're going to do our episode next week, something like that. So it's right before that.
We'll talk about it. I won't be around Wednesday, so we either got to do it earlier or wait next to the week after. So we'll talk.
We can do another day. We can do it whatever day you want to do it. That's fine. So we will be diving more into free agency stuff. We're also going to have to start creating our big board at this point. You know, we've analyzed a lot of players, and it's been all over the place, but we're going to have to sit down and probably do some more reviews and give you guys our big board at some point and lay it out, start working on it. This is the time of year where we start doing player previews, right? Like 1 to 2 player reviews. I mean, reviews. So I think we're going to have to pick by 1 or 2 guys per episode and just kind of quickly review them.
Yep.
As we do other things in the episode, we'll do faster reviews and go through guys. So we're going to get back a little bit more into scouting as we approach the draft. But like I said, I did kind of want to wait on that until we got through at least some parts of free agency to get a better feel for things. So we'll work on it. That's kind of all I've got. You have anything else for today?
Well, that's all I got. I talked a lot.
It was awesome. I mean, I love this kind of stuff. And I think, look, I have my own views on AI, but it's here, and there's, whether you like it or not, it's here. And it's fascinating. I mean, it hallucinates a lot, gives you shitty information. It makes stuff up, you got to be careful with it, but you're using it as a tool to crunch a lot of esoteric data. And I think it's fascinating how it's doing this. And I do like the idea that some people here have brought up, which is combining traits with production to create like a composite evaluation from just data and predict success. So maybe we can find a way to work on that, but more to come there. Otherwise, thank you guys for being here. We will see you next week. I don't know what else is on the horizon with what's going to come out of the combine, but it should be eventful from now until the draft. If you have any thoughts, let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next week. Go Giants.
Go Giants.